invite you again to come to one of our webinars and do that. So let me get started. And let me introduce David to you. David Hooten teaches woodwind ensemble, and music appreciation at McLennan Community College in Waco, Texas. And he has a degree in music education from East Texas University. He's completed doctoral courses in music theories at the University of North Texas, and he's active as a clarinet performer, and I think that is the image you see of him. And Mr. Hooten participates in state and national clarinet and music organizations. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to David and let him show you all the wonderful work that he has done. David?
Well, thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be able to do this for you, and I'm amazed that so many people are interested in this, but I'm sure happy to see it. Today I'm going to be concentrating on some of the things that I've done in the class as far as integrating. Yes?
David, you haven't shown your screen yet.
I will do that.
Good thing. There you go.
Okay. Now, I'm going to be looking at some of the things that I've done today, and I'm going to be focusing somewhat on the copyright issues because, as you might be aware, that is a serious problem when you're putting things online. When I agreed to teach this course for the first time online, my goal was to create a course that would be available to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And indeed, this has worked out. I've had students from as far away as China and other parts of the U.S. The first year that I taught the course, it was not terribly satisfactory. I was using a commercially prepared online course. Later, I used a textbook CD package that was coordinated to my online material. And I did that for several years. But that wasn't really all that good either because a couple of reasons. None of these commercially available textbooks covered the material in just the way I wanted to teach the course. And also, the textbook and CD combination became prohibitively expensive for our students. We live in an area that is not terribly well off. Many of our students are on scholarships, as I'm sure many of yours are. Well, back to the course. In 2008, I completely rewrote the course using mostly my own original material. This music appreciation course is designed as an asynchronous online course using SoftChalk to create most of the content. I'm currently teaching 5 sections of this course. We have one other internet section taught by another instructor using different materials. In the creation of this course material, we had to consider design problems and also copyright issues. Now, copyright issues are a particular problem in visual and performing arts courses. Here are some of the problems and my current solutions to these problems. I'm still working on them. Let's see if I can find, that's the one I want. The course reading content includes original material written by myself and written material from other authors used with permission when required, and links to other websites. This page uses original text written by the instructor. You could also include a video of this and any other lecture material if you wish. I especially like this text popper feature that SoftChalk has. This term that is defined here is one that is used here in context and is also included in our glossary. Every term in the glossary is used in context in the course. We'll move to another course, another page now in this same course, same lesson. This page contains a long quote from a book written by Robert Danziger, and I think it's the best concise discussion of this topic that I've ever seen. I wrote to Mr. Danziger for permission to use this material describing my course and the fact that it is password protected. Permission to quote the material was granted. Most of the time, copyright owners are willing to give permission to reasonable requests. I always keep a hard copy of permissions communications. Note the illustration on this page. This is from a free image source. It's copyright free, and I have presented this image plus a caption underneath. I used Snagit to add this caption, and then I included the image into the SoftChalk lesson. This is just another example of how easy it is to make your lessons more interesting using SoftChalk. I use these two image editors when I'm working with SoftChalk. Snagit is relatively easy to use. I use the software when all I want to do is add a caption. There are more features to Snagit, but if I need to significantly alter an image, I will use Photoshop. Again, if you alter the image, you must get permission from the copyright holder. While we're on this lesson, let me show those of you who haven't used SoftChalk one of these great, easy to create features. This flashcard activity is one of my favorites. This helps the students to review the musical terms that were covered in this lesson. Each time the activity is accessed, the cards are presented in a different order. Another example of the use of Snagit is a screen capture to illustrate the elements in SoftChalk lesson pages. And I do this in an introduction to the course modules, where SoftChalk is used for all of the modules. In this introduction to course modules, I use the Snagit to illustrate the different parts of the page and how they're to be used by the student, how they will interact with that page in the lessons. Now let's look at an obvious solution to copyrighted material and a link that's embedded into a SoftChalk lesson page. On this page, we have a link to an Encyclopedia Britannica article, J.S. Bach. Encyclopedia Britannica has improved their website recently, and if you'll note the richness of the audio and visual resources in this link. Let's see. You can hear some of Bach's music. You can see images related to him. This is a direct link to an Encyclopedia Britannica article. In more resources, I like to use this feature a lot in my lessons. In this area, we have a link to Grove Dictionary music online. Let's try that again. There we go. And this is a relatively long article on Bach. This is for students who want to really dig in and find out more information. These two resources require a subscription, and the cost is based on the college's enrollment. These and other resources are available at no cost to MCC students through the MCC library. Subscription fees for these reference works are paid by the college as a part of our library budget. And currently the cost of these two references is, for the Encyclopedia Britannica, almost $2,600 a year, and for the Grove Music Online, almost $4,000 per year. And this fee went up substantially this year because of our enrollment increase to over 10,000 students for the fall semester. Other illustrations. Photos taken by the lesson creator or the instructor usually will not be protected by copyright, except when the object being captured is a copyrighted work. When in doubt, get permission before using your photo. Let's look at some other free sources for illustrations. In our orientation, which is specific to this course, I use quite a few illustrations from the Microsoft website. And in very small print here, you see the attribution, www.microsoft.com. I had to get close to see that. There are other images out there that are free that we can access, and here is another example, which I thought was a really good example. These three girls are a visual representation of ternary form in music, also known as ABA. I found this on the New York State Education Department website. I just simply inserted it into the SoftChalk lesson page with the caption added showing the copyright ownership. Copyright permission is given in instances like this by the New York State Education website itself, and reads something like this. There are several pages, but the pertinent part is this. Permission to copy, use, and distribute materials created by, etc., is hereby granted without fee for personal, private, and educational purposes. And one more. Here's something that students probably haven't seen. They may have heard it but not realized it, and that is the keyed trumpet. And that's what it looks like. This image is from a direct link to a public access page in the image library at the University of Edinburgh, United Kingdom. Well, there are many other ways that you could include images to make your course more attractive and more interesting to your students. But let's now look at some streaming audio. First of all, the audio produced by the instructor is not subject to copyright, except in certain instances. I use SoundForge from Sony Creative Software to create MP3 files. I like SoundForge. I've used it quite a few years. There are other software packages out there that will do the same thing. This one I can save files of any length. It can save in a variety of formats, and you can edit the sound file itself. The audio files that are created with this are either inserted directly into the SoftChalk page, if it's a short one, or are sent to our streaming server. And some examples of this. In this introduction to voice timbres, I've given some examples of the different voices, included a short cut from a recording. Since this is a short excerpt, copyright permission is not necessary. However, when the students need to listen to a longer excerpt or a complete work, we link to an off-site library, the Naxos Music Library. The Naxos Music Library is an online source of a vast amount of music. Our link in the course is through a subscription with the MCC library. The cost of this subscription is currently $2,685 per year. This fee will allow 15 students to access the Naxos library simultaneously. We have had no problems with students not being able to get on, because although we have as many as 150 students at a time enrolled in this course, not all of them will be trying to access the library at the same time. We started out with 5 licenses, and we did have an occasional problem, but since we've gone up to the 15 students at the same time, we've had no problems. The students are able to access this when they go through the MCC library or through our web pages in this course. Now, the best way to link to this library would be a direct link to the track that we want the student to hear. But since Naxos requires a login page when students log in from off campus, that direct link will not work. So here's what we have to do. First, the student must copy the Naxos CD number and make note of what track they want to see or want to hear, and then click on the Naxos Music Library link. And this seems to be a bit slow this afternoon. Then we paste the CD number into the search window. Open the track listing. Select the track we want to hear, and then click play. I always have to wait for a phrase to finish before we move on. The subscription to Naxos, through our library, provides copyright permission. These CDs are also available for the students to purchase if they wish, and here's how they do that. When this window opens, they will be able to add the whole CD to their cart if they wish, or they may buy individual tracks and download those tracks online. We also link to other streaming servers, and we'll take a look at Free Jazz. This streaming link is from NPR, National Public Radio, and it is available to the general public. There's no copyright issue here. Note that there will be a brief commercial before the music begins.
Support for NPR comes from Vanguard Records, featuring the release of Beyond the Sun, the new album from Chris Isaak. More at chrisisaac.com.
This module on jazz presents particular copyright issues. The Naxos Jazz Library is one source, and we can use that. But much of American jazz is not available because of copyright restrictions in the United States. I'd be interested to know if you folks from Europe could access those things that we can't hear. I'm sure you can. The NPR and other links available to the public are just some of the solutions to this problem. Now let's look at some streaming video. Videos made by the instructor usually do not have copyright issues. Notice I say usually. In this particular one, I created this video to help illustrate the structure of a fugue exposition. And again, we have a link to the Naxos Music Library to hear it in context, the entire piece. This example was produced by the instructor using Finale, which is a music notation program. The video capture was with Camtasia. This video resides on the MCC streaming server, and since it was created by the instructor, no additional copyright attribution beyond the SoftChalk notice, which is automatically posted at the end of each of your lessons. No other permission is needed. This video could be a little bit larger, but our IT guy says we want to keep these smaller if we can because of space problems on our server. Finale. Finale has a really steep learning curve. I've been using it for about 15 years now. But this program is the standard for music notation courses. There is another music notation course that is very, very fine also. This is just the one I started using. It's one I'm most used to. But most of you won't be involved with that. However, Camtasia, this is a relatively easy to use software packages. But capturing and editing and producing a video with Camtasia does take some time, sometimes hours for longer videos. And my suggestion would be to try to keep your videos to less than 10 minutes. This will save your time, and will also save some critical space on your servers. I'm going to have to close this one out. That will be fine. There we go. Opera has been a particular problem in creating this online music appreciation course. Although most of the operas that we study in music appreciation courses are now in the public domain, the videos, the copyrights to the videos of these operas are owned by the company that produced the opera, such as the Metropolitan Opera. One answer is to link to YouTube, such as we do here. Just remember that When using social media, the links must be checked regularly to make sure they're still available. Sometimes people post to YouTube and other social media without getting copyright permission. And if the copyright owner objects, the video is removed from the website. These are just a few of the things that I've done in this course to try to make it more attractive to the students and to try to get them more involved. And I've found that SoftChalk has been a great help in creating these lessons and organizing them. Again, thanks to Steve Salzberg for setting up this webinar. And a very special thanks to Stacey Taylor, sorry, Stacey. She's our instructional design specialist. And Stas Voskoboynikov, our systems support specialist. Stas has helped me a great deal solving these technical problems when we're dealing with the Blackboard server, our streaming server, and off-site sources also. We inevitably run into problems. And integrating all of these with SoftChalk, Stas has been a great help to me. So that's what I have for you today. Steve?
Okay, well, thank you, David. I think we have some questions out there. And some of them I think you just partially addressed. So let me ask it in a different way so you can sort of be specific. The question was, all the content you're creating, are there problems with the amount of storage it takes on your servers?
Yes.
My suspicion is that you're using a bunch of different servers to do all the work you're doing. So go ahead and address that, please.
All right. When I first started putting my original material online, I was bringing in lengthy files, and the IT guy, Stas, called me and said, "Hey, you know you're taking up most of our Blackboard server. Could we do something else with some of these long audio and visual files that you got?" So that was one of the reasons that we bought the streaming server for use on our campus. Yes, that did solve part of that problem, but most of the problem was solved by our library when we were able to get the Noxos included in our library budget. That way we could access the music from off campus and didn't take up room on our servers. Hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I believe it does. A couple of things about attribution. You mentioned Microsoft at one point, and so the question that we got is, did the Microsoft attribution happen automatically? Did you do something in order to make that visible?
Yes. Well, actually, I just typed that into the SoftChalk lesson.
Ah, okay. Let me look. Oh, my friend Bud asked the question. He asked whether or not when you went to Encyclopedia Britannica and you were looking at the author and then the composer, and then there was a whole series of microphones or speakers in which you selected one of them to hear that particular music. How do you know what that music is? You did not see any link that says this is in a particular aria.
Can you still see my screen?
Yes, yes. We're looking over your shoulder.
Oh, well, that's good. Actually, what I did was I just went through some of these and listened to them. It's still loading, as you see down here. That should pop up in just a moment. But there was no indication as what was on each one until you open it, and then these are just short audio things anyway. I don't think they're very long.
If you
yes,
okay,
there,
okay, when you
roll
over it, you can see it.
Yeah, you can see which one it is.
Okay, okay, and another question you showed one of the opera videos, and they wondered whether or not they thought the Met had given permission to get those on YouTube. And my thinking is that they'll probably be gone pretty soon because of copyright issues.
You know, I have used the same cut several times, and I found that a couple of times it didn't last very long. And I think what is happening is that someone out there somewhere, not me, is taking a series of videos that were produced for a textbook, music appreciation textbook, and just simply copying that or taking it out and posting it. And it could be that the copyright owner of the textbook objected to that. I don't know, but it can happen, and that's why I check those regularly, and if necessary, I'll find a different illustration for opera.
Right. Well, somebody wants to confirm that YouTube, you don't need to do anything special in terms of copyright with YouTube. That is assumed that you can use it freely if it's on YouTube.
Well, it's open to anyone out there. It's not a part of my course per se. It's not residing here on the MCC campus. Anyone can access that anywhere, and this may be a bit of a slightly gray area, but I think that anyone that accesses this from anywhere, whether it's within this course or somewhere else, it's there. Now, when we put it into a course here, we don't actually put the actual video in the course. Let me make that clear. And that's what our lawyers have said we could do. We couldn't take that video from the CD or the DVD that I also have access to. We couldn't take that and put it on our server here without permission, and I would not try to do that. It would be too costly for one thing. But when accessed the way we did it, I think it's okay, and our lawyers seem to think so also.
Yeah, somebody's comment was, don't download the YouTube video, just link to them, and you should be okay. At least until it disappears.
One more thing about that. All of these things that I have on the course here, whether they're videos or audios, the student cannot download them. They have to listen to them through the web page. That's been set up by SoftChalk to be so that we can avoid those copyright issues that way.
A good question here is, how do you check the links? Do you go over them regularly? Is there some kind of warning?
Well, two ways. Blackboard, no, we don't have a warning. I don't think we do. But Blackboard has a check links feature to it, and that helps somewhat. But I still go through and check all of my links at least once each semester, usually towards the first of the semester. And then I always ask the students, if you're having problems with any of the links, let me know as soon as possible and we'll get them fixed. And we just occasionally have a problem, but not too much anymore.
Great. And I warned you when we did our rehearsal session earlier this week that you would get this question, and it says, approximately how much time did you need to invest to develop this course?
Oh, well, okay, I'm glad you asked that one. It's like writing a textbook. I started working on it in December of 2007, I think. Just worked a little bit on it, and then spent a good deal of time in the spring of 2008. And then during the summer of 2008, I spent about 8 hours a day on it. So it takes a lot of time to put something like this together. But I really think it's worth it. And I think it tailors the course to specifically what you want to teach in the course, what you want to emphasize. For instance, let's take a look at this in the course modules. I've introduced the students to the music before 1750 in one module, all of it. That's about 1,600 years worth of music history at least, or more. But that's music that they're not likely to hear. And then the music they're likely to hear, I spend more time on. And then I also added a full module on jazz and another one on world music. These are two topics that are not very well covered in most music appreciation textbooks. And I felt they needed more time, especially the jazz, because that is our American music.
I mean, there's two parts to this question. One
Yes.
is, how much time did it take for you to develop the content, and how much time did it take for you to make that a SoftChalk-based, lesson and courses? I mean, I'm sure they're intermixed, but
they are. But some of the material I drew from other sources that I'd created for other courses several years ago, and I was able to take those files and just dump them right into the SoftChalk lesson page. So I saved myself a little writing time that way. But the SoftChalk lessons really kind of flow pretty quickly once you have in your mind what you want to cover and how you want the illustrations to go in there. It works pretty well and saves a lot of time, I think.
Right. Okay. So some questions are coming in. One of them that let's go back to has to do with the fact that isn't there an exemption for educational uses of copyrighted material?
Yes, but don't rely on that too much, because as I mentioned earlier, something might be a slightly gray area. Well, we used to rely on that gray area a lot, but it's getting smaller and smaller. For instance, in our classroom, face-to-face classrooms, if we use an illustration or let's say in my classroom, a sound, a CD, if we get a CD and play it for our students or show the same illustration to our students every semester, then if that is not our own creation, we must ask the person who owns that copyright for permission to use that in our class. Now then, the exception to that was a spur-of-the-moment thing where you think, oh boy, wouldn't this illustration just show exactly how ABA form is structured? And you run to your office and get a copy of it and maybe throw it up on the chalkboard or on a screen somewhere and do your illustration. That's fine, as long as you use it that one time. But after that, you should get permission. Now, that's a fairly recent issue that's been resolved in the courts. But I don't think they're coming after very many educational institutions right now. And if we were to say, okay, you can download this music and save it for your own library, sure, the copyright owner, rightfully so, would come down on you hard, and because they need to have that income so they can keep producing music. Being a musician, I'm very well aware of that. People want to use my creations for free, and most of the time I'll say, sure, you can do that. But if not, if it's something that's a commercial thing that they're going to make money off of it, I'll say, okay, I'll do it, but you have to pay me this fee. That's just the way the world works.
Well said. Question about SoftChalk. Do you use the quizzing, polling, learning activities, tools?
I use the learning activities. I don't use the quizzing things so much. I just haven't been doing that. What I do at the end of the modules, I'll usually have a review where I just list the things that the students will need to know. But in things like this, I'm not sure, this one doesn't have one. This has the links, the pop-ups in it. But I'll use the, well, let's see, at the end of the voices I had that a drag and drop activity, that sort of thing. You've seen these, haven't you? I'm sure you've used them. That one was not a good one, was it? But this one is. And I just use these as kind of a fun thing for the students to help get them involved in the topics. But as far as quizzes go, I'm sure there's going to be a question about it. I used the Blackboard quiz module, test module. And what I did was I created a bank of quiz questions for each of the modules and set it up so that the students could take the tests more than once. But but each time they take that test, they have a different set of questions. So that way they don't copy the test as readily. There's no way to stop all of the cheating that might take place and that sort of thing, but we've done our best to minimize it.
There's a couple questions. Well, there's one question that came about Encyclopedia Britannica and how pricey it is, and whether or not that's a substantial issue.
Well, as I said, we have an enrollment of over 10,000 students, and so many of our courses on campus use that for research purposes. We have hard copies of some of these reference materials, but as most libraries have done recently, we've minimized that and taken advantage of the off-site links. And actually, it saves us some money. For instance, the row Music and Musicians, we have the link to the online site for that. If we were to buy the copy, the hard copy, it will cost us well over $2,000. I think that's the latest price I saw, $2,500, something like that, for the hard copy. And the students just have better access to it online than they do going to the library. But usually those various kinds of research sites are based upon the size of your school. Smaller schools will pay quite a bit less.
And there's another related copyright question, which is different than we've had before.
Okay.
Who owns the content you create? I mean, that's something that was asked about.
The content that I create.
Yes.
I own the copyright to that.
Okay. Okay.
For instance,
there's always questions between the university, college, and the author.
Okay. I see where you're going with that. We have an agreement on our campus that the college controls the Blackboard environment, but any content we put in is still the property of the instructor.
Okay, couple of Blackboard questions, and I'm going to take this back and talk a little bit about where else we can go and give access to information about how to get more information from us. A couple of people have asked about the streaming server that you are using.
Yes.
And was wondering if you had any comments about that or recommendations.
Well, our streaming server, I can't speak to that. Stas, I think, is enrolled in the course, and he may be able to answer that for you. All I know about it is that if I wanted access to it, Stas told me I could have it, but I'd rather let him have these complicated problems and solutions. I'm not an IT guy. I'm really not. I don't do any of these things unless they're relatively easy for me to do, and he's helped me out a lot with that. Our college saw the need for this, not just for this course, but for many of our courses that were being starting to use more online videos and audio things. People will record their lectures and put them online for a while, and that's why we needed a streaming server.
Yep, just got a note from Stas saying that it's a homegrown solution, so it's something that Stas and his folks developed for you. So you've got a really nice technical team behind you. That's nice, David.
We do. They've been so much help to all of us on campus. About 10, 12 years ago, our administration saw the future and saw that we would be doing a lot of online teaching. I checked into that not very long ago. This semester, we have 1,721 class sections, and 39% of those sections are taught through the Internet. That's how much we've embraced it.
Wow. Anyway, we're about 7-8 minutes of the hour, and I'm going to try to wind up here, David. Thank you. I'm going to spend a couple of moments just talking a little bit about some ways you can learn more about SoftChalk, and there's a whole variety of things from this Innovators in Online Learning series that you are participating in now. We have weekly introductory webinars, and I really encourage you to take those in, as well as training and all kinds of things. Let me just go to the SoftChalk website and just show you this Learn More tab. You can go to all of our webinars, from the calendar to the Innovator session. We have short courses on specific topics. We have tutorials, and you can request demos. We have partners which we work with that also have recorded demos as well. We have this great support site that you can get your questions answered, and we have obviously SoftChalk Connect, which is a digital learning object repository. So you can find out more about all of this by visiting our website. And I just invite you to go there. There's lots of good materials there. And just to close, there is our contact information. Now you will get an email tomorrow, and the email tomorrow will have a link to this recorded webinar, so you can share it with your friends and allies. We've had several comments. Matter of fact, I think over the course of the time you've been talking,